This is the complete story of every helicopter used in the Vietnam War by Vietnamese forces and the United States. So we begin with Vietnamese helicopters used by North and South Vietnam. The Mil Mi-4, also called Hound, became the primary transport helicopter supplied to North Vietnam, used mainly for moving personnel and equipment in rear areas. It rarely flew into direct combat zones due to vulnerability and limited air cover. In extremely rare cases, the massive Mil Mi-6 appeared in Vietnam, one of the largest helicopters in the world at the time. It was used strictly for heavy transport tasks far from the front, where its size and noise would not expose it to enemy fire. Late in the war, small numbers of the Mil Mi-8 arrived. This more modern helicopter offered better performance and payload capacity, but its late introduction meant it had little impact before the conflict ended. The Kamov Ka-18 served as a light utility and liaison helicopter. Its role was limited to transport and coordination, rather than battlefield operations. China supplied North Vietnam with the Harbin Z-5, a licensed copy of the Mi-4. It filled the same rear area transport and logistics roles, supporting North Vietnamese forces. South Vietnam relied far more heavily on helicopters, operating many of the same aircraft used by the United States. The Bell UH-1 Iroquois, also called Huey, formed the backbone of South Vietnamese air mobility. It carried troops and provided combat support across the country. Heavy transport came from the Boeing CH-47 Chinook, which allowed South Vietnamese forces to move artillery, vehicles, and large supply loads to remote positions. Earlier troop transport relied on the Sikorsky CH-34 Choctaw, especially during the early years of the war, though eventually replaced by the Huey. Light reconnaissance was handled by aircraft like the Bell OH-6 Cayuse, the Bell 47, and the Hiller OH-23 Raven. These helicopters performed scouting and observation roles, often flying low and exposed. Naval and transport operations also used the Sikorsky UH-34D, which supported coastal movement and logistics. Now let's discuss helicopters used by U.S. forces. The Bell UH-1 Iroquois was the most important helicopter of the Vietnam War. It transported infantry into combat, evacuated wounded soldiers, carried supplies, and served as an armed gunship. As the war intensified, the need for dedicated firepower led to the Bell AH-1 Cobra. This was the world's first purpose-built attack helicopter designed to escort troop transports and strike enemy positions with rockets and machine guns. Heavy transport demands were met by the Boeing CH-47 Chinook. With its twin-rotor design, it carried artillery pieces, vehicles, ammunition, and entire units into areas unreachable by road, making large-scale operations possible. The Sikorsky CH-54 Tarhe, known as the Sky Crane, specialized in lifting oversized cargo. It recovered downed aircraft, transported heavy equipment, and saved vast amounts of material that would otherwise have been abandoned. Marine and heavy assault operations relied on the Sikorsky CH-53 Sea Stallion. Built for power and endurance, it moved troops and equipment in harsh terrain and weather, particularly in Marine Corps operations. Earlier in the war, limited numbers of the Sikorsky CH-37 Mojave were used for heavy transport. Powerful but inefficient, it was quickly phased out in favor of newer designs. The Sikorsky CH-34 Choctaw played a critical role in the early years of U.S. involvement. It carried troops and supplies before Huey became dominant, helping prove helicopter warfare could work at scale.